Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. Aliens made rules to stop us. We built a warship anyway. Commander Jack Reed stood at the viewport of Orbital Station Unity, watching Earth spin below. 50 years had passed since first contact, and humanity had gained the stars but lost something vital in return. Jack pressed his palm against the cool glass. At 55, with gray creeping into his dark hair, he was one of the few who remembered a time before the aliens arrived. Commander Reed, the Galactic Assembly inspectors have docked. Lieutenant Davis approached with a tablet. "They're requesting your presence." Jack nodded, straightening his blue diplomatic uniform. No weapons allowed, not even ceremonial ones. That was Rule 17 of the peace protocols. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." When the assembly ships first appeared over Earth's major cities in 2073, humanity had feared war. Instead, they offered membership in a galactic community of over 30 species. The catch: Earth had to follow the rules, hundreds of them, all detailed in the peace protocols. Jack walked through the station's white corridors, nodding to crew members. Most were too young to question the protocols. They had grown up with alien technology, alien trade, and alien restrictions. The meeting room doors slid open. 3 aliens waited inside. The tallest was Ambassador Kell, a 7-foot blue-skinned being with 4 arms. Beside him stood 2 Recre inspectors, short gray creatures with large eyes that missed nothing. "Commander Reed," Kell said, his translator making his rumbling voice sound almost human, "we appreciate your punctuality." Jack forced a smile. "The assembly schedule is our schedule, Ambassador." "Indeed." Kell gestured to the star map on the wall screen. "We're here for the quarterly inspection of Earth's orbital platforms. Standard procedure." Standard procedure that had never changed in 50 years. Jack knew what they were looking for. Any sign that humans were building ships larger than allowed or developing weapons beyond police-grade stunners. Of course, Jack activated his tablet. "I've prepared all the documentation." The inspection took 3 hours. The aliens scanned every inch of the station, checked every manifest, and questioned random crew members. Jack stayed with them, answering questions and keeping his face neutral even when they asked the same things they always did. "Your power consumption has increased 3.2% since our last visit," one Recre noted, large eyes blinking slowly. "Earth's population has grown," Jack explained. "More people means more stations." "Growth is concerning," the alien replied. When they finally left, Jack returned to his office and locked the door. He pulled out a small device from his desk. A signal jammer not on any official inventory. A gift from a sympathetic alien trader who understood that sometimes privacy mattered. Jack activated his computer and opened a classified file. The document had been buried in Earth's government archives for decades. Anthropological assessment of human species. Galactic security briefing. He had found it by accident during a routine data transfer, and what he read had changed everything he believed about Earth's place in the galaxy. The file was clear. The peace protocols hadn't been designed as universal rules. They had been crafted specifically to limit humans after alien researchers studied Earth's history and concluded that humanity was dangerously unpredictable and possessed concerning innovation patterns that could destabilize galactic peace. Jack closed the file as his communication panel chimed. A priority message from Mars Colony was coming through. "Commander Reed here," he answered. The face that appeared belonged to Governor Martin of Mars Colony. Her expression was grim, her eyes red from crying. "Jack, we've been hit. The Outpost 3 is gone. Everyone." Her voice broke. "Everyone is dead." Jack felt his chest tighten. "What happened?" "They're calling them pirates, but we know better. It was a Crow warship. They hit us without warning, claimed we had expanded beyond approved boundaries." "That's impossible," Jack said. "The Assembly approved that expansion 2 years ago." "Tell that to the families of 87 dead colonists," Martin snapped. "I filed a formal complaint with the Assembly. They're sending investigators in 2 weeks." After the call ended, Jack sat in silence. 2 weeks. By then, any evidence would be gone. It was the 3rd attack on human outposts in 6 months, and each time the Assembly response was the same: slow, bureaucratic, and ultimately useless. Jack brought up another file on his screen. The schematics for Earth's defensive ships. Small patrol vessels with minimal weapons, designed for police actions against human criminals. Nothing that could stand against a real warship. His private communicator buzzed. A message from an old friend. Jack, I saw the news about Mars. We need to talk. Not on official channels. Meet me at the old place tomorrow. Emma. Dr. Emma Wilson had been Earth's top weapons designer before contact. After the peace protocols, she had been reassigned to safety equipment research. She had never forgiven the assembly for clipping her wings. The next day, Jack took a shuttle to Earth, claiming a routine inspection. Emma was waiting at their usual spot, a quiet corner of a park in what had once been Boston. At 60, Emma's face showed her years, but her eyes still burned with the same intensity Jack remembered from their military days. "They're not going to help us, are they?" she asked without preamble. Jack shook his head. "The assembly is sending investigators in 2 weeks." Emma laughed bitterly. "By which time the crow will be long gone." "This isn't random, Jack. These attacks are targeted. Someone's testing us." "Testing what?" "Our patience. Our compliance." Emma handed him a small data chip. "I've been monitoring assembly communications. Don't ask how. They're watching us, Jack, waiting to see if we break the rules and defend ourselves properly. If we do, they'll have their excuse to put us under direct control. And if we don't, then they'll keep pushing until they've taken everything." Emma's voice hardened. The peace protocols were never about peace. They're about control. Jack looked at the chip in his hand. "What are you suggesting?" Emma leaned closer. "I have ideas, Jack. Designs that would work. Things they would never expect because they think we've forgotten how to fight." "The assembly monitors everything we build," Jack said. "Every piece of metal, every power source." Emma smiled, a fierce expression that reminded Jack why she had been feared and respected in equal measure. "Who said anything about using their approved materials? We just need to think differently." She pointed to the sky. "There's an old mining facility in the asteroid belt, officially abandoned. Unofficially, it could be a start." Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a spark of hope mixed with the thrill of defiance. "You're talking about breaking every rule in the protocols," he said slowly. "They made the rules to stop us," Emma replied. "I say we build a warship anyway." Jack looked up at the sky where stars were just becoming visible as evening fell. Somewhere up there, humanity's future hung in the balance. "Who else do we need?" he asked. Emma's smile widened. "I have a list." The abandoned mining facility hung silently among the asteroids, its exterior dark and lifeless. From a distance, it looked like just another piece of space junk, exactly as Jack and Emma had planned. 3 weeks after their meeting on Earth, Jack stood in what had once been the facility's control room. The air tasted stale despite the recyclers working overtime. Around him, screens flickered to life as Emma powered up systems that had been dormant for years. "Welcome to our new shipyard," Emma said with a grim smile. "Not much to look at, but the assembly hasn't bothered with this place in over a decade." Jack nodded. "What about the team?" "They'll be here tomorrow. I've brought them in on separate transports, all with different cover stories." Emma pulled up a display showing 4 incoming ships. Each one thinks they're here for a classified research project, which isn't exactly a lie. Jack studied the personnel files Emma had compiled. 4 names stood out. Tom Miller, a former space racer with 27 wins before the assembly banned dangerous velocity competitions. His ship handling skills were legendary, and he had been working as a cargo pilot since the ban. Marcus Lee, an AI programmer who had pushed the boundaries of what the assembly considered acceptable machine intelligence. His work had been shut down 3 years ago. Diane Foster, a material scientist specializing in tech the assembly classified as dual use, meaning it could have both civilian and military applications. "You've been busy," Jack said, impressed. "I had 50 years to think about this," Emma replied. 50 years of watching them box us in. I started making lists a long time ago." The next day, as the new team members arrived, Jack watched their faces carefully. Each showed the same mix of emotions: surprise, excitement, and fear when they learned the true nature of the project. "You're asking us to commit treason," Marcus said bluntly during their first full meeting. The young programmer looked around the room. "Not against Earth, but against the assembly. If they find out, we're not just going to prison. Our whole planet will suffer." "Our whole planet is already suffering," Tom Miller cut in. The pilot was older than Jack had expected, with lines carved deep into his face. "We're dying in slow motion. Those attacks on the colonies aren't random. I've flown those routes. Someone's testing our defenses, or lack of them." Diane Foster added quietly. The material scientist had barely spoken until now. The question isn't whether we should build this ship. It's how we'll hide it from their sensors. They monitor every piece of metal we mine, every power source we activate. Emma smiled and activated a holographic display in the center of the room. A strange ship design appeared, unlike anything Jack had ever seen in Earth's fleet or the assemblies. That's why we're not going to use standard materials, Emma explained. The assembly thinks in terms of metal hulls, crystal computers, plasma drives. We're going to think differently. She zoomed in on sections of the design. Biomechanical components, grown from modified Earth organisms, mixed with mechanical systems so primitive the aliens consider them too inefficient to monitor. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes widening. Grown ship components, is that even possible? Theoretically, Diane said, studying the designs. We'd need to modify some deep-sea organisms. Their pressure adaptations would work in vacuum. But the power requirements, that's where you come in, Emma told her. We need materials that produce energy but don't register on standard scans. For the next several days, the team worked around the clock, refining Emma's initial designs. They named their ship Phoenix, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of Earth's military past. The first major breakthrough came when Marcus discovered that the assembly sensor network had a blind spot. It was calibrated to detect high-energy signatures and refined metals, but largely ignored biological matter and simple chemical reactions. They're so advanced that they've forgotten the basics, he explained, showing the team a simulation. They're looking for fusion reactions and quantum processors. They'd never expect us to use something as primitive as chemical batteries or steam power. Steam? Tom looked skeptical. In space. Not exactly traditional steam, Diane corrected. But the principle is similar. Heat exchange creating pressure. It's inefficient by their standards, but it's invisible to their scanners, Jack finished. How soon can we start building? We've already started, Emma said. The biological components are growing in Lab 3. But we have another problem. She pulled up a report showing assembly ship movements near the asteroid belt. They're increasing patrols in this sector. Standard procedure says they shouldn't come near us, but nothing about this is standard, Jack finished. We need to accelerate our timeline. That night, as the others slept, Jack stood alone in the facility's observation dome, looking out at the stars. Building the Phoenix would take months, even with their best efforts. Earth might not have months. His communicator chimed with an encrypted message from Earth. Governor Martin's face appeared, her expression even more grim than before. Another attack, she said without preamble. The research outpost on Europa, 23 dead. Jack felt cold. Assembly response. The usual, investigating. No evidence of who's responsible. Martin's voice hardened. But one of our ships got a partial scan this time. It matches a Crow warship design. Not pirates. Military. After the call ended, Jack returned to the main control room and found Emma already there, working on new designs. You heard? He asked. She nodded without looking up. We need weapons, Jack. Not just engines and hulls. The assembly will detect energy weapons the moment we test them. Emma's smile was cold. Who said anything about energy weapons? I'm thinking about something older. Something they've forgotten about because it's too primitive for their advanced minds. She showed him a design for what looked like an ancient naval cannon, but with modifications Jack didn't understand. Kinetic weapons, Emma explained. Projectiles. No energy signature until they hit, and by then, it's too late. Will they work against assembly shields? They'll have to, Emma said simply. 3 days later, as construction of the Phoenix's core systems began in earnest, the team faced their first crisis. An assembly patrol ship changed course, heading directly for their sector. Routine survey, they're saying, Marcus reported, monitoring their communications. But the timing feels wrong. How close will they come? Jack asked. Too close. Their sensors will detect our power usage unless we shut everything down. The team worked frantically to hide their project. Biological components were moved to shielded chambers. Power systems were shut down. For 26 hours, they drifted in darkness and silence as the assembly ship passed by, scanning the asteroid field. When it finally moved on, Jack called the team together. They're suspicious, he told them. We need to be more careful, but we also need to work faster. Tom looked at the partial hull of the Phoenix, barely visible in the dim emergency lighting. She'll never be ready in time. She has to be, Jack replied. Because next time, they might not just be doing a flyby. Next time, they might come to shut us down for good. Emma stepped forward. Then we better make sure our Phoenix can fly before that happens, even if she's not complete. As the team returned to work with renewed purpose, Jack wondered if they were being naive. 5 people building a warship to challenge the most powerful organization in the galaxy. It seemed impossible. But as he watched Emma calibrating a weapon system that shouldn't exist according to assembly rules, Jack remembered something his grandfather had told him long ago. The most dangerous person isn't the strongest. It's the one who refuses to play by the rules everyone else accepts. The Phoenix was taking shape. Whether it would fly or fight remained to be seen. 2 months into the project, the Phoenix was taking shape. The main chamber of the abandoned mining facility had been transformed into an improvised shipyard. What had once been empty space now held the growing skeleton of a vessel unlike any humans had built before. Jack stood on a walkway above the construction area, watching his team at work. The Phoenix didn't look like a warship, at least not one the assembly would recognize. Its hull curved like a living thing, because in many ways it was. Beautiful, isn't she? Emma joined him on the walkway. Dark circles under her eyes showed her exhaustion, but her voice held pride. Different, Jack replied. Will she fly? She'll do more than fly. Emma handed him a tablet showing the latest test results. The biological hull is growing faster than expected. It's already bonding with the mechanical components. Below them, Diane worked with a team of drones, carefully guiding the growth of the hull using nutrient solutions and carefully calibrated light. The outer skin of the Phoenix looked almost like whale blubber, but was actually a modified form of deep-sea bacteria combined with coral structures designed to survive the vacuum of space. Any word from Marcus? Jack asked. Emma's expression darkened. That's why I came to find you. He's picked up unusual communication traffic. Assembly ships are moving in this sector again. Routine patrol. No. They're looking for something. Emma lowered her voice. Or someone. Jack's communicator chimed. Tom's face appeared on the small screen, his expression tense. We have a problem with the drive test, the pilot said without preamble. Can you come to Section 7? In the depths of the facility, Section 7 had been converted into an engine testing area. The room was heavily shielded to prevent energy signatures from leaking out. Inside, Tom and Marcus stood before a strange contraction, a hybrid of biological matter and mechanical parts that looked more like a heart than an engine. What happened? Jack asked. We fired up the test model, Tom explained. It worked too well. The power signature spiked before the shielding fully engaged. Marcus nodded grimly. For about 3 seconds, we lit up like a beacon. Anyone looking in this direction with standard scanning equipment would have seen it. Did you shut it down? Emma asked, joining them. Immediately, Tom confirmed, but it might be too late. Jack made a quick decision. Marcus, monitor all assembly communications. Tom, prepare emergency evacuation protocols. Emma, where are we with weapons? The main kinetic launcher is operational, Emma replied. But we've only manufactured a dozen projectiles. Make them count, Jack said. Diane needs to accelerate the whole growth. If we have to move, we move, ready or not. Over the next week, the team worked around the clock. The Phoenix grew rapidly, its biological components responding to Diane's treatments. By the 8th day, the outer hull was complete, a strange mottled surface that shifted colors slightly as they watched, adapting to the background radiation of space. Remarkable, Diane said, studying a sample under a microscope. It's already developing protection against radiation. I didn't program it for that. It's evolving. Is that safe? Jack asked. As safe as anything we're doing here, Diane replied with a small smile. The weapon systems came next. Emma's design was ingenious, a launcher that used chemical reactions to propel specially designed projectiles. No energy signature until impact, as she had promised. The ship's interior systems followed a strange mix of biological neural pathways and old-style mechanical controls. No standard computer systems, Marcus explained as he worked. Nothing the assembly can hack or track. We're using biological processing combined with mechanical backup. Old tech and new tech together in ways they would never think to look for. On the 18th day, disaster nearly struck. One of the biological components in the whole farm mutated unexpectedly, causing a small explosion that damaged part of the facility's outer wall. The team managed to seal the breach, but not before their power signature fluctuated again. They definitely saw that. Marcus confirmed, monitoring assembly communications. 2 patrol ships have changed course. They'll be here in 3 days. Jack called an emergency meeting. Options. We run, Tom suggested. Abandon the facility, find somewhere else, and start again. Not possible. Emma shook her head. She's rooted here now. The biological components can't be moved without killing them. Then we hide her, Diane said. Make the facility look abandoned again. Power down everything but life support. They'll still scan us, Marcus pointed out. Standard procedure after an energy anomaly. Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked up with a gleam in her eyes. What if we give them something else to look at? A distraction. Her plan was daring. They would launch one of their supply ships with a modified power core, one designed to leak energy in a specific pattern. It would head away from the facility, drawing assembly attention while the Phoenix remained hidden. It almost worked. The supply ship launched on schedule, its power signature fluctuating wildly as programmed. The first assembly patrol ship changed course to follow it, just as Emma had predicted, but the second patrol split off, continuing toward the facility. They're not buying it completely, Marcus reported. Second patrol will be here in 18 hours. Jack made the call. We launched the Phoenix. Now. She's not ready, Emma protested. The drive system is only at 60% capacity. Half the weapons aren't installed. The life support is functional. Jack finished for her. Can she fly? Can she fight if she has to? Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes to both, but not for long, and not well. Then we go. Jack turned to the team. Prep for launch in 12 hours. Take only what's essential. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. The Phoenix was detached from its growth supports. Critical systems were transferred aboard. Supplies were loaded. Through it all, Jack felt a growing sense of finality. There would be no going back after this. 6 hours before the assembly patrol was due to arrive, the team gathered in what would be the Phoenix control room. The space felt alive, walls pulsing gently with the biological components that helped power the ship. She's ready, Emma said, as ready as she can be. Tom took his place at the pilot station, a strange organic chair that seemed to mold itself to his body as he sat. Controls are responding. Main drive is online. Diane monitored the whole status from her station. Outer skin is sealed and pressurized. She'll hold together. Marcus watched his communications display. Assembly patrol is still on course. We have 5 hours and 43 minutes. Jack looked around at his team. 4 people who had risked everything for this moment, for a future where humanity could defend itself. He settled into the commander's chair, feeling the strange organic material adjust to his form. Begin launch sequence, he ordered. Let's see if our Phoenix can fly. The ship's drive system engaged with a sound unlike any conventional engine. A deep pulse that felt more like a heartbeat than machinery. The facility's outer doors, long unused, groaned as they slid open to reveal the star-filled blackness of space. The Phoenix moved forward, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as Tom adjusted to the unusual controls. As they cleared the facility, Jack looked back at what had been their home for months. It already looked abandoned again, just another piece of space debris floating among the asteroids. Set course for the outer belt, Jack ordered. Keep our signature as low as possible. And if they spot us? Tom asked. Jack exchanged a look with Emma, then nodded. Then we find out if all our work was worth it. As the Phoenix accelerated away from the facility, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in 50 years, a fierce pride in human achievement, unbound by alien restrictions. Whatever happened next, they had already won a victory just by building the ship. The Phoenix had risen. Now they would see if it could fly and fight. For 3 days, the Phoenix drifted through the asteroid belt. The ship moved with surprising grace for something so hastily completed, slipping between floating rocks with ease. Tom's piloting skills proved invaluable as he learned to work with the unusual hybrid controls. She responds differently than anything I've ever flown, Tom said, his hands moving lightly over the organic control panels. It's like she anticipates what I want to do. That's by design. Marcus explained from his station. The biological neural pathways learn from your inputs. The more you fly her, the better she responds. Jack stood behind them, watching the main view screen. The asteroid belt provided good cover, but they couldn't hide here forever. Sooner or later, they would need to make a move. Any word from Earth? He asked. Marcus shook his head. I've been monitoring all channels. Nothing official about us yet, but there's increased assembly activity throughout the system. They know something's happening. In the ship's engine room, Emma and Diane worked to improve the Phoenix's systems. The biological components continued to adapt and grow, sometimes in unexpected ways. The ship was evolving around them. The hull is developing new protection layers, Diane reported during the evening briefing. It's responding to the radiation and micrometeorite impacts by growing thicker in vulnerable areas. What about weapons? Jack asked. The main launcher is operational, Emma replied. We have 18 projectiles manufactured now. The secondary systems need more work. On the fourth day, everything changed. Marcus burst into the small room Jack had claimed as his quarters, his face pale. Assembly-wide alert, he said without preamble.